Welcome back, boys and girls. Today, I'm going to be ranking my commander decks. Now, I could rank these as far as like how powerful do I think they are, or how fun do I think they are. And I think the right ranking is kind of just going to be a mixture of these. Like, obviously, a deck that is horrible probably isn't going to rank that high for me if I don't, because I don't enjoy getting curb stomped. And on the flip side, a deck that is super fun, even if it doesn't win sometimes, I'm still gonna be okay with it. So somewhere in there, there's gonna be a mix. Okay. All right. I don't know how I get rid of that. Okay. Hopefully you guys can still see me on there, and hopefully it's not taking away from. Hopefully I'm not cutting into the screen too bad. Let me check real quick. I guess I can't really. Yeah, that's still good. Okay. All right. So I'll try to go in order of like when I made these. S tier, I'm gonna try to, like I said, come up with not just calling it S tier, but I can kind of, I guess I can give it a name. Um, so kind of with commander decks, I would say like the rankings are, like realistic. I will never, or what I'll say is favorite decks. Okay. A tier will be um let's see here. I mean, we'll go D can stand for dog shit. We'll do that. C um it needs work. I think it'd be fair. Um and by dog shit I mean either, like I said, it doesn't work at all, I don't enjoy it, or I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just not fun. That can always be a thing too. Um Mid, but with my decks, mid is not a bad thing. Like, I don't know. I maybe I could rework that one later, and then this one. Let's see. I know this is very exciting for you guys to watch. Um, we'll just say for right now, very fun. Okay. Well, it's not gonna be that. Okay. So there's my five rankings. Like I said, favorite decks, very fun, mid, it needs work, and dog shit. Okay. Like I said, I'm gonna try to go in the order of when I made these. So first up would be Gishath. Now my Gishath deck, it's pretty strong, but it takes a little bit of time to set up sometimes, or if I have the nuts, it doesn't take any time at all. But basically, the strat, like most people know, I'm trying to kill someone over the head, beat them over the head with big dinos. My commander lets me do that. Like, kind of, once he comes out, if someone doesn't have an answer, I'm not going to say it's game over, but people like start shitting in their pants. This was my first commander deck. It's what got me into the format. One of my favorite decks. It just it feels so pure to me. Like, out of all the decks that I have, Dinosaurs and Gishath is the one that I'm like, I know it like the back of my hand. Not saying it's complicated. What I mean is like, a lot of decks you're like constantly searching for like, okay, maybe I could try this, maybe I could try that. With Dinosaurs, I'm like, I know exactly what I want it to play like. I know exactly what it does, and basically, unless new dinos come out, I've pretty much scoured. There's no real new old support card that I wasn't aware of that's like, oh, that's perfect for the deck. I got understanding of the deck. All right, next one would be Zur the Enchanter. Now my Zur deck has changed so many times. I'm gonna let it rest in dog shit. It's not dog shit, but I'll let it rest there. So my Zur the Enchanter deck, originally, I mean, here I've always built it to be. I find 3 mana enchantments that are stuff that I want to play, and then I build the deck around that. Um, a deck that doesn't necessarily need Zur out, like Zur helps get the strategy going, but if my opponents are like, you can never cast your commander, I'd still be able to play my deck. I just wouldn't be able to get the 3 mana enchantments out that are like, making my strategy go by faster. But I've switched it around. I mean, I'm trying to remember all the different strats I've used, but at this point, I remember for a while it was a zombie Zur the Enchanter deck, and now because of Aether Drift a year ago, zombies, Esper zombies are kind of their own thing. So I turned it into a artifact heavy. artifact tap untap strategy is basically what I would call it. What I've done with Zur. It's my number one combo deck. Like I don't think I have the only other one that's up for consideration is maybe Kaikar. But I would put as far as Zur, that's also one of my favorite decks because it's the one that I would say my Zur deck is the most original in my opinion. Like lots of people made Zur decks. I don't run the typical things that like give him perfect protection. I don't run like a Necropotence or anything like that. It's very cool. You'd have to see it because I let people look at my deck and a lot of people be like, I have no idea how any of this stuff synergizes. I don't think I mentioned, it also has a series of Wizard Tribal in there. And like I had my buddy the other day look at it and he goes, "Oh, you got all this wizard stuff. You're not playing that many wizards." I'm like, Arcane Adaptation can turn all my stuff into wizards, including all the artifact creatures I make and all the tokens that I make. So very fun deck, very cool. This is hard because this is like, I mean, I don't have multiple kids. This would be like picking between your favorite child, I suppose. All right, next one would be my Kaalia the Vast deck. My Kaalia deck. Uh, my buddy Jesse has always said that he like hates this more than any other deck I have. Not because it's the most broken, but because it's like when it works, it's like shit. Nobody can do anything against me, and when it doesn't work, my deck just doesn't do anything. I would put Kaalia like it needs work and like dog shit to me would be like I just don't enjoy the deck is kind of how I do it. It needs work is like I believe in it, but it's not where it needs to be. Mid is just kind of like this is the ceiling of the deck and it's never gonna be that fun. Very fun is like, you know, maybe not one of my closest to my heart, but it's like it's a good time. I would probably put Kaalia in mid because I enjoy cheating out the like I love her artwork. I enjoy cheating out big stuff. Would I say it needs work or it's dog shit? No, because it's like it can be a good deck when it works. It just like I would say like Kaalia is always going to be susceptible to stuff because it's dependent on the commander being out. That's kind of how you have to build it. Like I've seen some people be like, well, if you just lower the CMC of the creatures that you're cheating, I'm like, if you're doing that, then I don't pick a different commander because like Kaalia, the whole point is to cheat out stuff that makes people shit in their pants. But I would say mid because like what Jesse's criticism was, it's strong when it works, but I would still even say like it's enough to make me the threat, not always enough to like win me the game or put me in a pole position. And then when it doesn't work, I'm just sitting there like can't play, can't play, can't play. Which once again, I don't want to say I wouldn't have it any other way, but like I wouldn't want the deck to become something that it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be get out, call you, drop big stuff. There's gonna be times where you got the big stuff in your hand and you can't play anything. It is what it is. Okay, next deck we're gonna go with my legendary graveyard deck, Kethis the Hidden Hand. Um, this is my only Abzan deck. I'm kind of working on making another one, but that's not going to be maybe for a little while. Kethis is legendary graveyard. When I first made this, I was like, this deck is bonkers. There's things I can do with it. It's evolved over time. Mainly what this deck adds, it's kind of like Dinosaurs in the sense of it knows what it is. It's basically got all the support cards that it's going to have. It's if new legendaries that are in these colors kind of fit what I'm trying to do, which my rule for that deck is a legendary creature that has at least one colorless mana that can be reduced, because that's what the commander does. He reduces legendary spells by one. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. Legendary creature graveyard deck. I'd put this in very fun because you do get to use a lot of your favorite legendaries. And it's very powerful once again when it works. It doesn't work every time, but it's definitely being able to do graveyard shenanigans, very fun. Very powerful. And there's like, because I'm using like the best legendaries that are in those colors a lot of times, there's stuff that pops up where like people, there's no way you could plan or prepare for that deck. What I mean is like I could drop one creature and you'd be like, I had no idea that that was going to come out. That's not what I was expecting. And now my plan's kind of ruined. It's like, yeah, it can happen. So, very fun deck. Okay, let's move on. My fifth deck that I made was Yarok the Desecrated. Yarok. This deck I just played last week with my buddies, and my buddy Upton came in town, so we actually had a full 4-commander pod. It was the only deck I had that got a win. I think we played 9 games, and I'm going up against a guy in our group named Brennan that basically has over 50% win percentage. So it's hard to beat everybody, but anyway, I got a win with this thing. My Yarok deck, once again, the strategy's pretty simple. I have an idea of what it is. I would call this a mid deck. It's kind of like Kaalia. if the commander's not out, you don't get quite the advantage that you, I don't say should, but if Yarok isn't out, I can play things that have ETB effects. It's not really enough to like make a huge impact and win the game. They're all kind of cool support effects. With Yarok, they become extremely powerful. So I'd put it in it because once again, needs work is like, I like what you do. You're just not quite fine tuned yet. And dog shit is like, I'm thinking of giving up on you. Which I didn't put it in this list, but I had no Becca Splitter of Seconds deck. I'm going to give that to my buddy Jesse. I thought I would love extra upkeeps, but it was like, when it was doing the extra upkeeps, it almost was like too easy, where it was like, okay, but a lot of the effects are not all that interesting. It's like, make a token on your upkeep. It's like, cool, I'll do this 7 times and make 7 of these tokens, which you would think would be better, but it's not. I don't know. There was that deck. I hope he enjoys it. Like I said, me, something about it with that deck, we weren't connecting. Okay, next, and like I said, sometimes I'm going to forget exactly which order I build these. We'll do, I believe, yeah, Newmont, I think, was the next one I technically made. Then I switched to Kaikar, then I switched back to Newmont. So Newmont is my, I call it land destruction, or what is it? Land destruction and taxation without, or sorry, taxation without land representation. That's what I call the deck. Because I'm basically trying to blow up your lands while countering all your spells and then slowly making things cost more. This is kind of also, I'd actually put this in very, I'd put it in very fun above Kali and Yarok because it's my original deck. And what I mean by that is many people have made Yarok decks. There's different ways to build it. Mine being full of counter spells, and the way that I do it is like, because a lot of people with him might go full on like, I'm just trying to get rid of all the lands. I play some land destruction, but it's mainly I'm trying to tax you and just make it more and more difficult to actually play the game over time, and I'm slowly trying to like grind the game and like chokehold it. But I would say it's very fun because, like I said, it's very original. I like the feel of the deck because it's like, it's nice to have a deck full of counterspells where you're always like, I think I got an answer to that. I'm not too worried. I think I can answer that. I don't make strong board presences, but that's okay. Like I said, very unique in my opinion. I really enjoy the play style of that because it's such a change from a lot of the other stuff. Okay, let's move on. Next is, I believe it's my Nekusar deck. All right, so I think it is. Let me double check. Let me just make sure. Okay, my Nekusar deck. I built this as because a lot of people just do the wheels and that's all they do. I built this as a discard deck. I love discarding my opponents, and so I was like, okay, there's cards I can throw in here that make my opponents discard. I like this. This would go in the very fun. It feels group huggy because it's like, hey, leave Nekusar out. It's like, yes, I'll burn you for a little bit, but everyone's getting to draw extra cards. Who doesn't like to draw extra cards? It's in my favorite 3-color combo, which is Grixis. Shout out to Krim, the Asian Avenger. We just happen to both love Grixis. I just think it's such a cool color combo. Like I said, Nekusar, it's fun. I think the only wheel I have in there is Windfall, if I remember correctly. I might have 1 or 2 other ones. But my point being, it's not just full of every wheel card that you can think of. So my Nekusar deck, like I said, is primarily focused on making my opponents discard. So I'm like, hey, you did get to draw extra cards, but I'm also ripping cards out of your hand and using a lot of cool Grixis synergies and then doing burn damage stuff. Excuse me. All right, next, I believe originally it was Thantis the Warweaver, and then I didn't make that again until recently, and then I made Crash the Bloodbraided. But we'll do Thantis because, like I said, I'm trying to go like originally, like when I made these. So Thantis, forcing combat. Now, like I said, she's not actually in dog shit. Just give me a second. I originally made this deck to be like, hey, forced combat, double strikes, whatever stuff. Now I've looked back at it, and I'm like, I'm just setting it up for like, I want you to attack me, and this is what happens when you attack me. I have a lot of things with Death Touch. I have a lot of things that give my opponent's creatures kind of, because once again, Thantis forces attack. And then I have stuff like when creatures die. So I'm excited to test this thing out. I haven't tested it out yet, like in this new version. But I would say Thantis, that definitely goes in my opinion, very fun. Like, I don't know if it goes over Zur and Gishath because Gishath does one of my favorite things, which is just dinosaurs, just cheating them out. Zur, like I said, that's me personally, like one of my favorite decks. Combo decks, I love enchantments. But Thantis, just a blast to play because, like I said, I have played it before. Just the uneasiness of a lot of people like, I need this as a combo piece, whatever. And if Thantis is out, it's like, well, your combo piece has to attack somebody. And granted, they could attack the other opponents. Maybe they don't have the right setup. But for me, I got the setup. So I think it's a blast to play. If you have not tried a Thantis deck and you're looking for a new commander, I highly recommend it. Okay, going on. I think I might have done these slightly out of order. Next is it's my Bant deck, which is enchantment focused and +1/+1 counter focus is the main two themes of that deck. I still think there's probably a better commander to be made in Bant to try to do what I'm trying to do. I don't need a commander that's like Bant +1/+1 counters. I just need a better enchantment commander. This one, Tuvasa basically says every time I cast enchantment, draw a card. The first one I cast each turn. You can give all your stuff flash if you wanted to like do it once each turn. But I found that like it's when you do have the flash setup, it's like once the commander goes, like there's really no point to have flash is cool, but I'm saying you could be using better cards for what you're trying to do. I would say this is I would say this is mid. It's not that it's not fun. I enjoy an Enchantress deck. That's all fun, and the +1/+1 counters. You can get crazy, stuff going on as far as what your stack is, the amount of counters. But I don't think I could put it in front of the other ones because just like some of the, I'm playing a lot of like good value cards. I'm playing a lot of like, just hey, this is a good enchantment. This is a good enchantment. And the +1/+1 counter stuff. It's like, yeah, it's cool, but people have seen that. It's not the same kind of wackiness that the decks above it have. But I think that's a good spot for it. Because once again, it needs work. It's meant for decks where I'm like, I'm not sure of what your strat is. I gotta do some work on it. Tuvasa, pretty easy. Like I said, it's just a mixture of +1/+1 counters, making creatures / tokens, and +1/+1 counters. Okay, next I'm gonna go with my Xyris deck. So this was when I was doing every 3-color combo. This was the last one because this is. Let me double check. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, this is deck number 10, which was the last 3-color combo that I hadn't tried, which was Teamer colors. So I made this a couple years back. Originally, I was like, he's all right. And then I was looking at Teamer commanders. I was like, I guess he's the one that makes most sense. So this is Snake Tribal / draw a bunch of cards, make my opponents draw a bunch of cards / 1/1s, green 1/1s to be exact. This is my best deck. According to we've tracked, we use an app to track basically like game stats, and this is my best one. So because it's my best one, I have to put it in favorite decks because I do enjoy kind of being the power player. Doesn't happen very often because as you see, I have a bunch of decks, over 30 at this point. I don't always get to be like, hey, I'm head honcho at the table. But my Xyris deck, I mean, basically, I'm going to make my opponents draw a ton of cards. I'm going to make a ton of snakes, and then I'm going to normally don't even need to kill you with combat. I can just do burn spells or some other crazy shenanigans to win the game. Because I have a ton of cards in my hand, it's not that hard. Xyris, one of my favorites. I wanted to check someone real quick. I just want to make sure there's a card. It just popped in my head. I was like, am I running this card? I just want to be sure. I believe the card's called Fateful Showdown. It's in red. Yes, I am. Okay, I did throw that in there. From Kaladesh. Yeah, good card. Pay 4 mana, deals damage to target creature, play with the number of cards in your hand, discard the cards you have, draw many cards. The discard and draw many cards is not that important, but the being able to do damage equal to the number of cards in your hand, very important. Okay, next, and these will kind of get a little foggy of which one I made in which order. By the way, I do have 2 Thraxamundars. I uploaded that one because it was good quality, but then it had the white blocks, and I tried to remove the picture. I could figure out how to do it. So that's the Thraxamundar we'll be using. The next one I made was my colorless deck, which Kozilek the Great Distortion. He's the 12/12 with Menace. And he's I think 10 mana. When someone casts a spell, if you have the same mana cost as that spell's mana cost in your hand, you can just discard the card and counter the spell. I love him. He's hard to get out. He's a lot of mana. My colorless deck is a lot of fun, in my opinion, because it is such a challenge, but it's also kind of rewarding because you have the most limited card pool, in my opinion. Even more than like a regular monocolor deck. So I would put this. I'd still put this in mid and not very fun because, like, don't get me wrong, it's kind of similar to Kalia in a way, and what I mean is, if Kozilek is out, I'm able to counter stuff whatever. But I guess it's almost similar to Gishath because I have this long build up to get my commander out, and until the commander gets out, I'm kind of always in an uphill battle. Like I don't feel like I'm in control of the game hardly ever. The deck has some crazy wombo combos that I can do to be able to cast shit for free or just draw a shit ton of fucking cards or get a lot of mana. But it's it's not when I say it's not one of the most powerful, all these decks have high ceilings, but that's not a deck that I'm like consistently someone's going to be able to get their strategy going faster than me as much as I try. But it's still, like I said, I have a good idea, foundation of what that is. It's basically good colorless stuff with Eldrazi Tribal. That's basically what it is. I mean, but it's a good deal of fun. Like I said, it's a good challenge. Because once the big Eldrazi start dropping, people do crap their pants. And like I said, nothing's better than just discarding to counter stuff. Ashlyn Rose is the one that showed me that deck on game nights way back in the day, and I was like, that looks like a bunch of fun. Okay. Once again, I'm not going to remember the exact order I made these, but I think we can go with, we're going to go with Pirates. My Admiral Beckett Brass deck. So I love Pirates. Like I said, Ixalan, Arrivals of Ixalan is my favorite set. So I have the dinosaurs from here. I haven't made a Merfolk yet, although I do kind of have a Merfolk deck in the wings. Maybe I'll make that at some point. And then the Vampire deck we'll get to. But Beckett Brass Pirates, it's very cool, very thematic, very fun. But I would put this in, and this is in my opinion, this is my worst deck. I would put this in. It needs work though, because when I say dog shit is more of like I don't enjoy this deck. I enjoy Pirates when they're doing their little pirate things. But the thing is, like, I've looked on my Archidect page, and it says that this deck. It basically says all my decks are bracket 4, but it says my Beckett Brass deck is bracket 4. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way this deck is bracket 4. It doesn't win. Like the only thing I'm good at is like I can get some pirates out, like maybe like 2 pirates out in the first couple turns, and then normally after that it's like okay, waiting for that third pirate. Maybe I'll get my commander out, and then it's like by that time people either got blockers, they've removed something of mine, or their strategy is better than mine, and like it's not a great deck, and I'll admit that, but it's fun. I still think there's a better pirate commander to be made. They haven't made it yet, in my opinion. But Pirates is it needs support. Like they still need to make a good chunk of good pirate cards. I was really disappointed with Lost Caverns of Ixalan that I don't think they actually made that many good pirates. I'd have to look back. I think maybe there's 3 pirate cards from that set that I threw into that deck. The rest I was like not a fan. It might be even less than that. Okay. That's that one. Let's move on. We'll go with Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. So this is my Knight equipment deck that also I put in a vampire sub thing because I love the vampire knights from the conquistadors from Ixalan and Arrivals of Ixalan. So I would put this. This is tough. I would put it in It Needs Work, not because it doesn't work or I don't know what the strat is, but I would put this in. Like, I love seeing the Conquistador Knights, and I love seeing the swords, like the Mirrodin swords and all that stuff, like Sword of War and Peace, Sword of Feast and Famine, all those. I love them. And they're the only deck I really run those swords in. But that being said, there's something, I don't want to say not satisfying, but it's like everyone knows what the strat's going to be. You just put good equipment onto your creatures and just swing out. And normally, I almost got a victory with it this last week, but, my buddy Upton decided to, like, give everything double strike and trample, vigilant, everything, and I was like, okay, keyword soup, I guess I lose. But I don't know. Once again, I wouldn't say it really needs work. Like I have a good idea of what it is, but I don't know. Maybe part of it is I do think that they should just make some better knights, some better vampire knights. It's got some wiggle room in there that can definitely be improved. So yeah, that's where I'd put it. Like I said, cool effect. I'm glad she exists. I think she's a cool commander. Like for not just knight. I don't even consider it a night travel deck. I just consider this is my equipment deck, and it just happens to have knights in it. But the vampire knights are the ones that I enjoy the most. Okay. The next one we'll go with is we'll do Ishin Two Heavens is one. So this is one of the last decks I made before I got out of Magic a couple years ago, and I was going through a rough time. And then I've since bought all this stuff back, and not looking back. But anyway, Ishin Two Evans is one. This is attack triggers deck. Um, hmm. Here's the thing: some things have to be in dog shit. Like if I don't put anything in dog shit, then it's like, what was the point of the thing? I'm going to put this in dog shit. But I will preface by saying I love what the commander does. And I love building a deck around like things that just have attack triggers and seeing if you can make something out of it. But I will say, if the commander's not out there, it's tough sledding because once again, like Yarok, there's just not enough things that really like these little effects on their own don't do enough unless you have the doubling effect. Um, my main thing is I just want kind of how I said with like pirates from like I want some better pirate support. I want some better attack triggers that are cool effects, whatever. So that deck needs support. I have some wonky stuff in there that's kind of like that could get out of there. The reason I would put it below these other ones is because pirates, I can still enjoy pirates even if I don't win the whole game. I can still be like I did some cool pirate stuff, whatever. The knight deck, I'm like that deck. I know it can work. I've seen it work. It just once again needs a little bit more support, but like I get it. The Ishin deck, I I don't know if I've won with that deck in a long time. Maybe once. It's just, I've gotten close. Like when it goes off, yeah, it can be really cool, do some cool effects. But I don't know, something about it. But I'm not giving up on it because like Ishin, I just think he's such a cool commander. I love Mardu. I love Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I thought that was a great set. But I will put, and it's weird. Like I said, the Ishin deck might be better than Pirates, but I don't know. Pirates, I feel like is easier to get off the ground and start doing stuff, even if it's very small. Ishin, it's like if you're missing one of your colors, missing one of your lands, it's like this ain't gonna work at all. You're playing a bunch of like cheap small creatures that don't have any synergy unless the commander's out. So that's the thing. Pirates, at least there's some pirate synergy in there. Ishin, if the commander's not out, it's like this thing has an attack trigger, then one other card might be doing something on attack, but in a weird way, they kind of don't synergize. I don't know. But like I said, I'm not giving up on it. The next one we'll go with, we're going to do Kaikar Wins Fury. I just remade this deck, hopefully for the last time. It's gone through a lot of iterations. I think originally when I made this deck, it was just traditional Spellslinger, and then I was like, no, it's doing artifacts, and it still is an artifact heavy deck, but I've just found some other cool cards that I've thrown in there. This is a combo deck, which is very fun for me. I do like using combo decks. I'm gonna say it's more brain power to do it, but I would just say like it's kind of cool to have like an upkeep. Like my buddy Jesse loves Planeswalker decks because he said he likes do this effect, do this effect. I kind of like that. It's kind of like a little, I don't know, little system you got to upkeep with. I would put this, um, but Kaikar is also very situational as far as what you have, and what I mean by that is there's times where you're like, oh, I didn't draw any of my good non-creature stuff to play the cheap stuff, but I have like a creature that's good for my synergies. I guess I'll just play the creature. When you just like drop one big creature or something, the deck isn't doing anything. So that can be weird. I'll put this in. I would still say it's very fun because of the combo. So I'll put it there. I'll put it in very fun. Um, like the combos that you can do in this deck is nuts. Um, I don't know. If you've never tried a Kaikar deck, very fun. My buddy Brendan also has a Kaikar deck, and as much as crap as I give him, I will give him respect for he made a Kaikar vehicles deck, which I thought was very original. Now, don't get me wrong, I think vehicles are kind of lame and easily abused when you just like, oh, I tap these spirits that I make and just crew the vehicle. Anyway, it's not that hard, but I will say I hadn't seen really many people do vehicles, so that was kind of smart on his part to turn it into that. Okay, next up, we're going to go with, we'll do Crush the Blood Braided. This kind of, once I stopped, because Thantis I didn't have for very long and eventually stopped it, and I was like, oh, I don't have a Jund deck anymore. So I made Crush the Blood Braided, and he's not really in dog shit. Crush is, if anyone doesn't know, whenever another creature dies around him, your side of the board, their side of the board, he gets X+1/+1 counters where X is that creature's power. So he's just going to grow stronger over time. I love the strategy of that, like kind of like a King of the Hill, last man standing. I love the strat. It's perfect for Jund, what Jund wants to do. Um, I haven't. This deck still needs some work. Like I think I know how it's meant to win, but it still needs, I think, a few support cards. I'm gonna say this needs work. It's fun when it works, but it hasn't worked that often for me because generally either I get the commander out and not a lot is really happening around him, or I have all the kill cards and everything like that, but I'm just not able to get the commander out, or they remove the commander. And that's another thing is if the commander's not out there, all your kill stuff, while it's cool to kill your opponent's creatures, um, I don't know what else to say. The value you're getting off of it almost seems wasted. Where you're like, maybe I should have got rid of that creature because the commander's out there. So that's kind of the dilemma. But I'm not getting rid of the deck. I mean, it's a fun deck. I do really enjoy it. Okay. Next up, let's go with we'll go with a deck that I basically this is Kadena Slinking Sorcerer. This is the Morph deck in Sultai. I remember watching the professor play this on game nights, and I thought this was like a lot of fun. It looked like a lot of fun. I got this commander from my buddy Jesse. He made the deck and he played it for a while, but Jesse kind of is weird where if it's not a Planeswalker deck, he kind of eventually just abandons the deck, which is kind of sad. And it wasn't getting played, and I was like, I kind of want to play it. So I kind of, I asked him, I was like, can I, basically take the bulk of your cards and turn it into what I want to do? And he goes, yeah, sure. So as of right now, out of all these decks, this is the one that is not currently built. I mean, I don't even have sleeves for it right now. Dog shit's such a strong thing. I will put it in the dog shit category, not because it's, once again, maybe I should change the name. It's not truly dog shit. It's just what's cool about the morph deck is you're like, play a morph, draw a card, play a morph, draw a card. But the bottom line is most of the morphs, they do like slightly annoying like little strategies. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to slightly annoy my opponent. But they're not like, that deck is like hard to pick. What's the win condition? It's like, I'm not really sure. You can still flip up some big morphs, but like, takes a long time since your opponents combined have 120 life. It takes a long time, even if you have like a 9/9 morph, to be like, all right, 9, and it doesn't have trample, 9, that's it. Like, you can keep the things down as 2/2s. Like, we normally outlawed Beastmaster Ascension because it's too dumb of a card, but in Kadena, it's like you absolutely need a card like that to just be like, hey, these morphs that are face down, they're now 7/7s. I can do something with them. And even still, beating up someone with a generic 7/7, you got to do it to get the job done, but it's not that fun. So it's a cool engine, and morphs are a cool type or card design. And I think the commander's great. Commander's not the problem. I just think they need to make more morphs that are cooler or have a cooler effect, or just more versatile, however you want to say it. All right, next up we're gonna do Earl the Miststalker. Earl the Miststalker. I always wanted an aura deck. I call this deck my Do You Lift, Bro? This is, in my opinion, another one of my better decks. I think I just won with this thing the other day. I'm going to put this in... The fact that he has Hexproof is always what they complain about. Like, how am I supposed to target it, whatever. Favorite decks? I don't know if I put it in my favorite decks. It's fun to juice him up, but once again, if he's not out there, you can still technically juice up other things. It's just not quite as good. But I would put that in very fun. It's nice to be able to get out one big power thing that it has hexproof, so it's hard for them to deal with, and be like, yeah, be scared of this. Like, I remember the last time I got him out, I was doing, like, at one point, I think he was like a 25/25 flying, trample, landwalk, hexproof, vigilance that also, like, basically had lifelink, or no, I had celestial mantle, so I was doubling my life total. It got insane, but it was a lot of fun. All right, next one. At this point, maybe we just start... I think we can just start doing these in order as they pop up on the screen. All right, so this is my mono white deck. This is... Well, no, hold on. I have another one that I know I made before that. This is Torwaki the Younger. I wanted to do a Rakdos... Well, I mean, Rakdos was just a 2-color combo I wanted to do, but when I saw this guy, what I thought of was like, there's so many cool kill spells like Doomblade and Go for the Throat that I don't really see anymore that I'd love to be able to throw in a deck. And so he's what I picked. He's half burn, half destroy stuff, which is cool. If anyone doesn't know, he adds an extra 1 non-combat damage to anything that's not him. And then whenever I cast Sensor Source spell, I can deal 2 damage to any target. So he... I'd put this in mid because it's fun to have the control of, like, I can just get rid of that creature whenever I want, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a burn deck. I mean, like, I would never be like, this burn deck's I mean, Nekuzar is a better burn deck, or at least a more favorite of mine, because Nekuzar is more of a group hug theme where we're all getting something out of it, and I can use a little bit of wackier cards. Torwaki, like once someone has seen the deck, they're like, I kind of know what this is. Like my buddy Upton, when I played this last week, he dropped a Curse of Exhaustion on this deck, and I said, I don't know if you realize how good that is against me, but that pretty much kind of shut me out. Where I'm like, I can only play one little thing at a time. Like this is a problem. But yeah, it's a solid deck. Like I said, I think the most underrated part of that deck is its life gain ability because he has lifelink. So anytime he's doing 2 damage to something, I'm gaining the life. So he's very underrated in my opinion. But once again, I don't think it's more to. I don't think he can creep up on my list any farther. Okay, now like I said, I think we can just go in order. All right, let's do my mono white deck, which is Darien King of Keldor. Um, yeah, I'm gonna put this in dog shit. And once again, I still like the fact that it's mono white. I'm gonna keep running it. Being in mono white is tough because you don't have a lot of answers to like. I'll have board wipe stuff. I'll have Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile kind of things, but I don't have a great way of like making my strategy happen faster. Uh, that can be tough because basically I need people to do. I need them to do damage to me while my commander's out, and the problem is they'll just get rid of my commander before they attack me with anything because they don't want me to make 1/1s. And yeah, I don't really have a good alternative to that. So that's the tough thing is like I like Darien and I don't want to change the commander, but I might have to because it's kind of seemed like the commander is just not working. There's a few cards that can deal damage to myself to make the tokens, but I just seem to never really draw them. So I don't know. I'm not going to get rid of it because like I want to have a monoco deck of every color, and that's my mono white deck, and it's got a lot of cool cards in there. But um, I got pretty close to a victory the other week. I played a what is it called? Redistribute the Sands, which is basically an 8 mana sorcery that's like redistribute everyone's life totals. And my buddy Upton was in the lead, and he was using like his it was a Rakdos Outlaw deck from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, where it was like he kept making outlaws and just kept stealing. I forgot what the commit Jasper I think is the commander's name, and he would just make more whatever you call it, outlaws, and then he'd be like, now I get to exile the top cards of your guys' library, and then I get to play those cards. That was becoming a problem. He stole 2 of my Soul Sisters, and then basically every time a creature was entering, include like he was going against a token deck of mine and a token deck of Brendan's, he was able to gain more and more life. So I set his life total down to 11. I gave Brendan my higher life total, and then Brendan proceeded, because he was using a green-white deck, he proceeded to do Kodama of the East Tree and just do like, he had like a bounce land that he kept like, okay, and he kept dropping lands, and then his commander made infinite tokens or whatever. Um, it's the commander from Kaldheim that basically can make a 1/1, I think, human warrior every time a land comes in. I was not impressed. Kodama of the East Tree should never be made. That card could be banned totally. But anyway, my point being, that's like the closest I've probably gotten to a victory because I was like, if I get rid of Upton, I was like, I think I got a good chance against Brennan. Anyway, didn't work out for me. So when I say dog shit, once again, I'm not getting rid of this deck. The morph deck, I'm good with holding off on rebuilding. Like I can be patient with that one. And Ishin. So if I had to rank these, I'd say you'd probably put it like that. Ishin, it's a 3-color deck, so it's kind of got more stuff to it to have fun. The mono white deck just isn't really working, but I'm still not going to quit on it. I just may look at a different commander for mono white. Who knows? All right. We'll go with Feather the Redeemed here. Feather the Redeemed is a deck that, in theory, I've seen. I think I watched Shuffle Up and Play, and what's his name? Is it Brian Hill? I try to remember the kids. Kyle Hill, or yeah, Kyle from that. Anyway, he was cool, and he piloted this deck, and technically he wasn't his. He was like, they did like a deck swapping thing. I would put this in dog shit. This would be probably even behind mono white. I like the strat of being able to use the same cards over and over again and be like, hey, I can protect my stuff, I can do slight things, whatever. The bottom line is like, I don't have blue, so like I'm not able to really control situations all that well. It just, people have said before that Boros is like one of the probably the weakest 2-color combo. And I thought with Feather, I was like, I'm not really going to be a problem. It's kind of a problem. Like I'm not really able to succeed in any of my strategies. I need creatures out there to have targets, and that's another thing. Kind of how I said with like Yarok, and I'm trying to remember what other deck it was. Kresh maybe. and Ishin, it's like if the commander's not out there, the deck kind of just doesn't do anything because your stuff you're normally trying to use just doesn't have enough oomph. There's no point in me using like spells on my own creatures most of the time if my commander's not out there to like give me the card back. Because if I'm not able to play the card multiple times, I kind of lose a lot of the value of why I played the card in the first place. I'm like, oh, here's a cantrip. There that goes. And it's like I was able to draw a replacement card. Oh, look, it's a land. It's like glad I got rid of that. I try not to do that stuff, but that's another problem. It's like if you have to hold off on playing anything until the commander's out, it can be an issue. So I might look for another Boros commander at some point. All right. Moving on. We'll go with Irietta the Charmed Apple. This was out of Wilds of Eldraine. As soon as I saw this card, I was like, I want to make this into a commander. I think a lot of people did. I think it's a really popular commander. I had never made a black-white deck before, so that was new. This deck, you can kind of build it two ways. You can either build it where you're picking the worst of the worst things to put on your opponent's creatures, or you can do it where you're giving your opponent's creatures good at auras and then be like, but you can't attack me with it, so attack your opponents. I do the opposite thing. I try to give my opponent's creatures bad things because if they remove my commander, I don't want them to be like, oh, well, thank you for giving me this aura that made my guy a 7/7, so now I'll just beat you with it, which is exactly what they would do. I don't want to give them like extra incentive to get rid of my commander. If they get rid of my commander, it's like, well, you're free to attack me with the stuff I put on your thing, but the stuff I put on your things are hurting you. I'm going to put this in... I'll still put it in mid because very fun. It's not like a deck where it's like everyone's going to have a blast with this. But I will say it's not so... Like, Irietta is a cool deck where most people aren't looking at me as like the biggest threat on the table. They go, okay, I know what you're doing. So in that regard, it's like the perfect power level. Okay. Next one we're gonna do, we'll do Sakiko, Mother of Summer, is my mono green deck. I saw this commander and I was like, holy crap! I completely forgot this existed. For anyone that doesn't know, when Sakiko's out, whenever you do, it doesn't have to be a green creature for honestly, but whenever you do non-combat damage, whenever combat damage is done, however much damage you did, you get that much green mana to basically spend until the end of the turn, which is insane. Which now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I probably could look at more artifact creatures to put in here because technically they don't have to be green creatures going here, but whatever. I guess it helps to just have the green creature synergy. I'd put this in mid mainly because like it's like get a bunch of mana, play a bunch of stuff, hit people with big creatures. That can be fun, but like a lot of the support cards are not as interesting as I would like because green in that regard, like green's really good at doing power stuff, but as far as doing like cool little nuance plays, it's not like once people know what the deck is, which it's pretty obvious what the deck is, there's not a whole lot of like, oh, that was a cool play, that was a cool card. It's like you kind of know what I'm doing, but I still, it's good. It works when it works. Okay. Next, we'll do my mono black deck, Shirei, Shizo's Caretaker. So this is I call like black weenies. Not to offend it. Well, screw you if you're offended. I also nickname it Black Lives Don't Matter. For the record, black people do matter. Everyone matters. But I just think it was funny to do that. But basically what you're doing is you get creatures that are power 1 or less, and then you find ways to sacrifice them or have them die, and then if Shizo's Caretaker is still out there at the end phase, at every end phase, he can bring back whatever creature died as long as his power was 1 or less on the board. Here's the thing. I've seen some people have creatures that like get buffed, like their 1/1s will get buffed over time. Like you realize when that creature's buffed and it dies, you don't get it back. So that's one problem. But two, I've seen some other strategies where people just like sack all the creatures like right away, and they'll even like sack Shurizo's Caretaker. And I'm like, but if you do that, then I'm like, you don't get any of your stuff back. So that's kind of like missed value. And that is another thing. If the commander's not out there, most of your sacrifice effects you probably don't want to do. But this is one of my favorite decks. I just enjoy using it. I don't know. There's something about using a bunch of small creatures to possibly beat your opponent. For the record, I've never won with this deck, but I still think it's one of my funnest decks that I've made, and I'm very happy with it. So, like, it's the complete opposite of Mono White. Mono White, it's like I'm kind of just sitting there waiting, like, please attack me when I have the commander out. Don't attack me when I don't have the commander out. And I kind of only have board wipes to deal with you, and every other thing is kind of impactful, but not really. The mono green deck, it's a bit of both. It's a kind of bland strategy, but it does work. This one's bland, doesn't seem to work. This one, in my opinion, is not a bland strategy because you have to have sack outlets, You have to have little cool miniature, small creatures that do something, and then there's all these cool black cards that synergize with the sack strategy and the graveyard strategy. So, and I even have a discard strategy in there. So I think it's a ton of fun. All right, now we can go into, let's do my zombie deck. So I built this thing. I still have not officially playtested this against people. So once again, take these next, I don't know, a handful of these, take these with a grain of salt. I now have this thing completed. Playtesting it, I think this is going to be mid, because it's kind of like some of these other ones where when the commander's out there, every time you draw a card, your zombies are getting +1/+1 until the end of the turn. When your commander's not out there, do you really want to be wasting a lot of your draw cards when you're like, I don't have a way of buffing my zombies? So I feel like it's going to be very commander reliant, but I've always wanted to do like zombie stuff. Like I said, I was doing that with my Xur deck a couple years back. So it's kind of cool that it has its own outlet now. So I'm interested to see how this works. I think it'll be good deck. Like I said, it's fairly straightforward. Make zombies, buff them up. I don't think there's really any other sub themes in that deck that I have. It's basically just, that. Zombies and draw. That's basically all it is. But I think that'll be a fun time. Okay, some of these other ones I have play tested. Niv Mizzet, the Visionary. This is my favorite form of Niv Mizzet because it's like, this is what I want Niv Mizzet to do, while at the same time it's like, it's not, I win the game. And I do not play the Niv Mizzet, I forgot which one it is. Is it the Firemind? It's the one from Ravnica, Guilds of Allegiance or whatever, whatever it is, Ravnica Allegiance or Guilds of Ravnica. The one that basically says whenever you draw a card, like deal damage to somebody. I don't run this in conjunction with him because that's an infinite. Because he says whenever non-con damage is dealt, draw a card, draw that many cards. But I like the idea of like the red. This is, when you have two color decks and you're like, what is each side? What is each color representing the strategy? This one is very clear. Red does burn damage. Blue draws you cards. That's what it does. So in that regard, it's pretty fun. It's got some wonky stuff to it. I would also put this in mid because I don't think I've won with this deck. I don't think I have. I've gotten close, and it's a cool deck. It's a cool deck in theory of what it can do. It's just sometimes it's tough because I feel like you either have like all the draw stuff or you have the burn stuff without the draw. If that makes sense. Like if the commander's not out there, you're not really drawing cards off it. So that's kind of a problem. The fact that it gives you infinite hand size is amazing. But yeah, I'd put it in mid. I think it's fine. It may need cards here and there tweaked, but I think the deck's fine in a. It's pretty cool. Like I said, it's a fair Niv Mizzet deck, which is hard to say sometimes. My buddy Jesse made the other Niv Mizzet in Commander one time. He had that for a while, and it was one of the strongest decks we'd seen. So he basically had to tear it apart because he was like, "This is too good." All right, these next two I have played multiple times, so I have a better feel for these than let's say like the zombie deck. But like I said, Niv Mizzet I've played a handful of times. These are the ones I've played plenty. My Rashmi Eternity's Crafters deck. I built this thing thinking like. Because I built it as a flash high CMC deck. Like, I want high CMC stuff that is going to give me the best bang for my buck. And if I'm going to be cheating spells, I want to be able to do cool stuff, big stuff that most of the time you never get to see. I didn't realize that whole phrase of like Simic value engine with no real win con. Man, it doesn't matter what commander you pick. That's why in that skip from the professor, it's like, who's the commander? It's like, it doesn't matter. Very true. It's like blue-green. You have all the control, all the resources, all the advantage you could want, except a way to close out the game sometimes. That's why I put Sun Quan, Lord of Wu in here to give all my stuff horsemanship as a surprise. I'm actually going to put this in one of my favorite decks because, yes, casting stuff for free is fun, but like I like that I'm just using a bunch of like, these are cards that don't normally get to see play. I'm not running... Like, there's a lot of blue-green stuff that, like, the generic, like, everyone knows these cards are good, everyone plays them. That's not what's in here. I have a lot of stuff in here that's, like, you don't normally ever see these cards be ran, so I'm going to run them. And, yeah, I have a good time with it. And it's, like, another cool thing with two-color decks is you don't have to worry about getting mana screwed as often. Normally you have your colors. And blue-green, obviously, you got the ramp, you got the draw. I have lots of creatures that counter when they enter, counter spells, which is cool. And then I have a few ways to kind of like get some advantages off that. So yeah, very cool, fun deck. Like I said, that's why it's near the top. All right, next deck is my Yannette Cryptic Sovereign deck. So I had a old buddy that built this deck, and I saw it, and then I think at one point Jesse built this deck as well. So I've heard from a lot of people like, oh, it's just boring. Like, you just all you're doing is just cheating out big stuff. That's it, if it works. Well, my deck I think only has like 3 spells that are not odd mana cost, and they're the 3 medallions. But aside from that, like everything's gonna have an odd mana value. Granted, it could be a land at the top of your deck. But I turned Yannette into kind of a combo deck. Now I don't mean combos in like I tap untap things or I do +1 counters or creature abilities. It's not like that. It's like if I have certain cards together, game over. That's what kind of spices it up and makes it a little bit more fun for me. So I would put this in the very fun category. I really maybe this isn't going for everyone's Yannette deck, but I really enjoy mine because it's like I have ways of putting things at the top of my library. I have like sometimes that's another cool thing with this deck is technically if I have enough mana, which I know is hard to say sometimes, I don't really need the commander out. I can just be like, all right, I can win without it. But it's also cool to be like, hey, once again, kind of like Rashmi, these are cool cards that hardly ever see play. Like obviously there's like the Elesh Norns that see play. I could go on, but there's a lot of other cards in there that I'm like, no one ever plays these, and I got them all in one deck. So it's kind of, in a way, this is weird, but kind of like Kethis, that I'm playing a bunch of good stuff in these colors, but good stuff that you don't ever get to see. Because like I said, these are high CMC stuff that most people don't even bother with. Okay. These next 5, because like I said, this is a duplicate image. These next 5 are all decks that I've made recently and haven't got to playtest with people, but I've done playtesting by myself, and I kind of have an idea of how the deck's going to play or what it's doing. All right. So this is my Nath of the Guiltleaf deck. I was looking at green-black commanders, and I don't know what just like made me have like a brain blast, but I was like, holy crap. I was like, I don't know if I ever ran Nath of the Guiltleaf as a commander, but I used to talk about him or think about him. Like, yeah, he's a cool card. I think I ran him in the 99 of a deck. I was like, I just like him as a card. I think it was the Legendary Graveyard deck. I think I ran him in there, and then I realized I'm probably not running enough discard strategy to hit for him to be good or worth the crap. So, he's a card that basically what he says at the beginning of your upkeep, you make a 1/1 elf, and then whenever an opponent discards a card, you make a 1/1 elf as well. But he's so underrated because I don't think it made sense to me at the time, but I was like, holy crap! If you just go full on discard, I'm like, you could make an elf army and then go all out. So I actually think he's a great commander. Like I said, haven't actually got a chance to playtest him in person against people, but from what I can tell, I would put this in the mid category. And what I mean by that is, once the deck works, I'm gonna rip my opponent's hands in and do token shenanigans with elves and be like, hey, I got a crap ton of tokens. I think it's gonna be effective. I think it's gonna work. When it works, my opponents will probably hate me. And when it doesn't work, I'm just gonna be sitting there being like, hey, I can make you guys discard a few cards. But once again, if the commander's not out, I'm not getting the bang for my buck on the discard. So, and the flip side of that is like, if I have all the elf cards, but I don't have a way of discarding, I don't make quite as much impact on the game, but I still think it's going to be fun and be a good time. All right. Next is my Teysa Orzhov Scion deck. I think I just heard the professor talk about this commander, and I was like, huh. I was like, I'm actually reading it. I'm like, there is more synergies and there are more complex and more complexity to that deck than I think what I was giving it credit for. I'm not saying this strategy is all that complex, but the fact of what you want to do is make as many black creature tokens, not creature tokens, but as many black creatures as possible, mainly tokens, to then sack those tokens to make white creatures, which then anytime a black creature your control dies, you make a 1/1 white spirit, and then you can sack 3 white creatures to exile target creature. So it's kind of like all the time I have a, Swords to Plowshares that doesn't make my opponent life gain. I have that online. That's kind of the cool thing is you can kind of be like, control this, control that, get rid of that, whatever. I don't have a commander that's like that, where it's just full on like, I'm going to hate everybody's creatures around. But there's so many cool token cards that never see play. Like, for instance, what popped out, Release the Dogs, a 4-mana sorcery from Jumpstart that's like, hey, for 4 mana, make 4 1/1 white dogs. I'm like, unless you're running a dog deck, most people probably would never run that card. But in my deck, I'm like, hey, good synergy. So I have a lot of cool stuff like that. I would put Teysa. I think this card's going to be. I think this is going to work really well. For what I could tell, I'm going to put that in very fun because it's like I'm not necessarily being like, hey, you guys all have 0 life, you lose. It's not really like that, but it's like I'm going to be able to control the board, and I have my token armies. But the cool thing is like I'm not just sitting there on a bunch of tokens, be like, hey, you've never seen a zillion tokens before. I'm using the black tokens to basically, I'm being like, hey, these are dead, that's fine. Making the white creature tokens, and then being able to control the board, like I said, and then go all out with it. So I like it. All right. Next up, we'll go with Madrotha here. My buddy Jesse made a Madrotha deck, and that was like honestly, I think the first deck I ever saw him use. And then for the longest time, he really didn't use it, or if he did use it, he didn't update it much. So finally, I was like, "Hey, you're not even like playing that commander." I was like, "I feel like it's okay if I make one," and he was like, "Yeah, sure." Normally in my playgroup, we don't try to make the same commander, but if we kind of have two different versions of it, we do. Like I said, Brendan made a Kaikar deck after I made one, and his deck, you could say yes, it does the same thing as far as like, hey, I cast an artifact, I make a 1/1. But what he's doing with his artifacts is completely different than what I'm doing. Like my strategy, his strategy, completely different. With Madrotha, Jesse's strategy was, I don't know, he had a bunch of, I'd say kill cards, but just like, I don't know, more generic stuff in my opinion, or and also in some ways weirder. Mine's mine's built around like low mana cost, being able to like every turn play like a 1 mana enchantment, 1 mana creature, a 1 mana artifact that does something really good. That way I could get the most bang for my buck with that. So this is probably going to be in one of my favorite decks because it's like it's a value engine, but I'm getting to still use cards that like you normally never get to see, which is like my favorite thing to do. Give me 1 second. All right, last two decks. Got my Thraxamundar deck. So, once again, it's just resting here. Thraxamundar, you could say like, well, yeah, okay, you're just running like a sacrifice deck. I'm like, yes and no. I this is one of the few times where I came up with the idea for the deck. I'm not saying I'm the most original person ever, but I came up with the idea for the deck, and then I was like, I need to find a commander that I can kind of fit the strategy in. So my idea was I saw a lot of cool sacrifice cards that I was like, oh, sacrifice a creature, generally a bigger creature or something, and then get, draw power off of that or some sort of advantage off of that. And I was like, okay. I was like, and I think I think the card that that inspired me to like I want to do this kind of strategy. Give me 1 second. I have to actually like find him on here. Where's he at? Excuse me. It's this guy. I don't know if you can see. Excuse me, Kethic Crucible Goliath. I don't know if you can see him. So I looked at him, and he basically says, at your let me read him real quick. It says at the beginning of your end step, you may sack another creature. If you do, reveal cards off the top until you hit a non-legendary creature with lesser mana value. Put it on the battlefield, then put the rest in the bottom of the library in random order. So originally I was building him as the commander, red-black, and I was like, yeah, this could work, but I ran into a few problems. The first problem is if the commander's not out there, you're not really getting a great value for like having that. And secondly, I was like, oh, because I had the idea of I'll steal my opponent's creatures and then sacrifice them and then be able to get stuff off the top for me. Now I'm running him in the 99, but some of the best theft cards are in blue. And I was like, if I don't have blue, I was like, there's a lot I'm missing out on. So I was like, I gotta find a Grixis thing that'll work. And I found Thraxamundar, and at least he says whenever a creature is sacrificed, he gets a +1/+1 counter on him. He's 7 mana. When he attacks, he makes defending player sacrifice a creature, and I think he has haste as well. The bottom line is, if he's out there, it's an added bonus, but he doesn't have to be out there for my strategy to work. But basically, yeah, I'm trying to. I call it my Grand Theft Auto deck. I'm trying to steal my opponent's shit, use it for my own, attack them with it, sacrifice it, get value out of it. And I can't wait to play it. I have no doubt this is going to be one of my favorite decks because I've seen other people try it. Like I said, my buddy Upton that played with me last week, he had that Outlaw deck, that Jasper deck, that basically is like, hey, I'm just going to use your guys' deck. Now, normally I don't find those decks all that interesting because I'm like, okay, you're going to use our cards, basically be like, you played a great card, I'll just use it. Mine's not really like that. Mine's like, I'll steal your card, I might use it once, but I'm going to sacrifice it, it'll go back to your graveyard, you can do whatever you want with it after the fact. But it's like, I'm going to just use it and abuse it for me and get value out of it. And my goal is to like make people really think twice about putting any creature out there because in a heartbeat, I can steal that thing. So that I'm really looking forward to. And once again, it's in my favorite 3-color combo. So if you're counting, kids, that's 1 Grixis deck, 2 Grixis decks, 3 Grixis decks. The Thraxamundar strategy, it made me feel not so bad because, like I told you, I had no Becca Splitter of Seconds deck, and I'm giving that to my buddy Jesse because that deck and me, I thought I would love it, and I really didn't. So I was like, I want another Grixis deck, and Thraxamundar, thankfully, that's going to give me what I want. All right, and the last deck I just made is my Mono Blue Braids deck, Braids Conjures Adept. I call this deck my Metal and Blues deck because metal for the artifacts that you cheat out, the color stuff, and then obviously blues for the blue stuff. I think this deck is going to be. It's kind of group huggy because, like, hey, we're all getting to cheat out stuff, but I know my opponents will be like, what he's cheating out is like a lot way worse. But I have no doubt that this is going to be very fun. It's like I said, some of the stuff I'm playing is stuff that you haven't seen in a Braids deck or most other things. And people talk about, like, hey, don't be too big of a threat. And I'm like, the bottom line is, like, in my play group, people play enough removal where it's like, you could still not be the threat. Tell them, because I'm not running Blightsteel Colossus in that deck. So they're not one card being cheated out away from, like, losing the game. But regardless of whatever I say, like, they're still going to try to get rid of Braids. I have a lot of flash stuff in there to make sure that I can give Braids flash. That way I can play it on my end step and then cheat something out. I don't think it's going to be one of my strongest decks in the sense of I only have like 1 or 2 ways of giving creatures haste, so it's like my point being I can get out big stuff. They're mainly going to be controlling the board, and whenever they attack, I got to wait a whole go round. But yeah, I just being able to use cards once again that you don't normally get to use. I love cheating out big stuff. So the fact that it cheats out big stuff, couldn't avoid that. So yeah, that's my list. If you guys asked me to like put these in order, I suppose I could try, but I mean, I don't know. I know this video's been going on for a while, I could try to do that. But it's almost hard to say because, like I said, some of these decks I haven't been able to fully playtest in a group. I've just kind of playtested on my own, and I kind of have an idea of what I like and what I don't like. So the ones that need work, like I said, these are mainly the strategy's just not really working as much as I would like. I have no doubt that attack matters. Attack triggers is a fun strat. I just wish they need to make a few more cards that I like that fit into that strat. And mono white, like I said, maybe I just need to look at other commanders. But in general, like I like Darien, but like I said, for whatever reason, it's just not working. So, all right, that is it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I may do a video like this every couple of months just to kind of give you an update and maybe give you an update on now that I've play tested with these decks months from now. I'll be able to say like this really is working and I love it, or this is not working the way I thought it would. So anyway, I recommend you guys do the same thing. This is pretty easy to do. Just download OBS, record yourself. I do have a decent mic, but record yourself and just put your commander decks out there and just let people kind of, And here, one last thing. If anyone, I love cheating out big stuff. If anyone has a recommendation for like a commander I could try out, or cards I could use in any of these decks, or I don't know, any thoughts or comments on my commanders? I'm not doing it for like, I want comments. I legitimately just like, I just want your interest. Like, do you guys like the commanders that I pick? Are these basic bitch picks? In some ways, I look at these, I'm like, these probably are the most popular commanders of these colors. While at the same time, I'm like, these are stuff that I want to do. Like, I don't know. I probably have a few commanders on here that I'm like, I don't think they're all that popular. Like, for instance, I don't think Thantis is all that popular of a commander. I don't know. I might be wrong in the sense of, I don't think Nath of the Guildleaf is a very popular commander for green-black, because most people do the other elf commander. Yeah, I don't know. That might be it. Like I said, maybe everything else is fairly popular. So you guys let me know in the comments below. But anyway, I'm Chris, signing off. Have a good one, guys.